What's going on, everybody? It is your main man, Big Ive, the talk of the town, Mr. DETV, and welcome to, well, this is a segment of Good Morning Wilmington, but it's a special segment called America's Turning Point. We decided that we're going to have this conversation with politicians, thought leaders, community activists, business owners, and today we have the pleasure to have two amazing guests that need no introduction for the community, but I'm going to introduce them anyway because you probably, in your course of your day-to-day, probably just been so busy. But welcome. I'm glad you're here to watch and listen and to learn. And if you have any questions about what's going on, please put them in the feed. We are streaming live on, I think, up to 20 platforms tonight and our website. So without further ado, let me welcome first the City Council President and the Wilmington Community Advisory Council. I think I just messed it up, but I'm not going to mess it up because I'm going to let her do it. Hanifa Shabazz. Hi, Madam President. How you doing today?
I'm well, and you, Brother Ive. How are you, sir?
I'm well. And we also have, I can't call him a hip hop icon. I could call him a writer with tempo. That is my main man, Richard Raw. He is the program director of the Cultural Restoration Project, Inc. And I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about that because his program, Beyond Bars, is just sweeping throughout Delaware, and it's just an amazing, amazing thing. Richard, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
How you doing, man? Happy to be here.
Pleasure's all mine. So let's get right on. Let's hop into it because we got a lot to unpack here. The reason that we created the show is we heard the mayor, and the mayor was actually on one of the shows here at DETV, Community Crossfire, and he said, in order to move forward, we have to first recognize and fix America's sins. So the first question, Hanifa Shabazz, what do you believe America's sins are?
To begin with, the one major sin is that of enslaving of a people, kidnapping. Our ancestors 400 years ago brought us here in oppression. We removed our knowledge of self, our God, our traditions, separated our families, and written laws that continue to maintain us in a subservient state. That's America's major sin. Not alone the land that belonged to the indigenous people that they claim for their own. That's the major sin that they're dealing with today.
Right. How about you, Rich?
Well, theft, to steal a people, robbery, to rob people, raping, and all things above and beyond. I mean, America has committed sins, atrocities all across the globe. I mean, this is a global issue that we're dealing with. And so, right now, I mean, a mirror is placed in front of America's face. And so with the COVID situation, it seems like, we had an opportunity to all of the issues in America were being highlighted, with the COVID situation. And so I think it's great that we're finally taking a look at what's going on, and we have to be vigilant at this point so to ensure that we can repair a lot of the damage that America has caused and inflicted.
I hear you. Now, excuse me, Hanifa, jump in. I want you guys to jump in at any time.
Okay.
This is not an interview. This is straight conversation.
Okay.
We want, and I appreciate you guys for being here again. So Hanifa, in your many years of being a community activist before being on city council, let's talk about some of the things that you've done to fix the community in that time. What have you done?
Well, back in the 80s, we realized that there was no place where you can get any type of literature that you could learn about our great history of the African diaspora and contributions that we made to not just the United States but to civilization. So we opened a bookstore, and the bookstore was one that you could get literature, not just the novels that you see today, the social novels, but the psychological, the psychology, the sociology, the historical documentation of what our great ancestors contributed to civilization, as well as what we were able to do when we were brought here over into these United States. Then we saw that there was not a way for us to really celebrate our great culture. I think at that time the only cultural event that we had here to celebrate, we as African Americans here in America, was that of the August Quarterly. So we created the African Festival The African Festival ran for about 13, maybe 18 years, and it became the sixth largest event in the sixth largest cultural event in the state of Delaware. It was a time for us to come together and celebrate the great pride and the great contributions that we've made. It created entrepreneurship because we had vendors. We even taught people how to vend. We brought communities together, resources, celebration of the great talents. Many individuals for the first time were able to demonstrate their talents on the stage. It was a time we were greatly proud of us as being here, Black in America. We added a parade to the African Festival, and the parade was, I never forget when first Chester walked down the street and they're high stepping, and Wilmington said, well, we can't let somebody else come in our town and do this.
Right.
So then all of a sudden across the whole city and state, drill teams and drum lines popped up everywhere. And our parades ended up with we had 102 groups in our parade. And it was positive activities for our young people to contribute to, but you had to do the right thing to participate. Then we needed to communicate what was going on in the community. So we created the Drumbeat Newspaper. Drumbeat was a publication that we gave out free and had it distributed to the community so they could know what was happening here in the city of Wilmington, what was happening, news that you could not find in the news journal about the great things that our young people were doing, about the great things that our community was accomplishing, about where our Black businesses were, where our social organizations were, and what they were doing. It was our drumbeat, the African drum, was how we communicated and said what was happening in the city of Wilmington. Yeah. And last but not least, we provided food for the mind, body, and soul, and we started the Hanifa's Kitchen, where you could get healthy soul food. We're going to eat our collard greens and our yams and all of those things, but I was able to create a recipe that was low in sodium. So what I've done, I've tried to feed the community mind, body, and soul, and we desperately need all of those things back again.
Now, Rich, do you remember that?
Let me add in. I have to add in because I benefited great. This was when I was young. I used to go into the bookstore, and in there, I met two wonderful people, Hanifa and Hanifa, and they really encouraged me to start this journey of getting into the literature of our people to understand the knowledge of self and who I am. And so I would come in one week, I would buy a book, I would come in the next week, I would buy another book. She had classes about foods, and we used to go to those classes to find out what foods resonate with our biological chemistry. That's where I seen all of this African garb and this whole Afrocentric thing going on. So I spent a lot of time there, and I was radicalized. I don't know if that's the right word, but I was definitely radicalized by what I seen, and I just learned a lot. The first time that I ever had an opportunity to perform was at the African Festival. Yeah. That was the first they gave me an opportunity to take the stage and perform. A lot of people don't know that history. So, I can speak as a testament to her great work and what she's done. We still talk about those African fries today. So, going and learning about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, these are our great scholars that even our children are unaware of. So just having that great opportunity, I'm here today as a testament to the great work that they put in. And so my job is to ensure that the next generation, for me, is encouraging our next generation to continue on this path to restoring our communities.
Now, as many years as I've been around.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I know you said we did it, but it wasn't just us. We worked, it was the community that did this. The festival was done with a collaboration of all of the organizations within the community. Christina Cultural Arts Center played a major role in assisting us. We didn't know everything. What we did know, we did. We partnered with the Coalition 100 Black Women, Henrietta Johnson Medical Center. At that time, it was a Minority Business Association. We brought other organizations in to do different parts of the festival. That's what made it great. It was a community event. It wasn't just ours, and so it was a demonstration of what we could do, and the economics that was made during that weekend, it was definitely our money turned over. We filled hotels because we had vendors coming from out of town. And it was a time that you knew that if you had a product, that you knew that you had a market, that you could sell those products, and you knew that you was going to make a good revenue that weekend. So it was a very good example of cooperative economics and pooling our resources.
And I think it's great. I think we have to bring that back. Now we're harnessing the power and the energy of what's going on at this very moment, where it's great. People feel proud of being who they are. They say Black Lives Matter, black and proud. This is the sentiment going around. And for a long time, our people didn't feel that. They didn't feel good about who they were. And so we have a golden opportunity, and I think we need to bring the African Festival back. I would love to see this administration contribute so that we can make this happen. I think at this point right now, I think we're in a great space. So I would love to, bring the community together, because like you said, it's a community effort, and sometimes it's difficult when you don't have the community working alongside you. And so I think it's a great opportunity for us to.
I think our children need it. Our children need to see that they come from a great, strong lineage. We bought the Black to Wax Museum here, and so even the children be able to see those type of things. We had African fashion show. It's just, the pride that was demonstrated that weekend, and the participation and the cooperation. Everybody won. These people started bringing their families down for that weekend, and that was a family reunion weekend because it was something great that they could be proud of here in the city of Wilmington. So not only was it cultural restoration for us, but it was an economic engine for us within our community, and that's mostly important.
I definitely miss it. I remember growing up, and I still haven't received any of those African fries, but I definitely, we're going to make that happen.
Missing out, big guy. Missing out.
Let me ask you both this question. Where we are right now in time is unlike any other time in history. Hanifa, let me start with you, Hanifa.
Okay.
Growing up and being here during the riots 50 years ago,
I'm not that old. No.
What's this time like for you? What do you see that you can embed into this the younger generation, into us? What do you see? How do we move forward?
We move forward with a plan. We do not have a collective plan. Everybody has an idea. Everybody wants to do their own individual thing. Everybody's siloed, but our goal is the same. So until we come together and make a collective, comprehensive plan of action, because everybody has a role to play. To build a strong wall, you need numerous bricks, and every brick is as important as the first brick that was laid. The bunch of pegs can't break as easy as just one. Right now we're dealing with COVID-19. We got $1.23 billion coming into the state. 325 million went into the county. Those monies are to deal with the relief of what COVID affected the community. The question's been asked: what relief do we need? What do we need to do, especially in our already inequitable, disparate, vulnerable community that everyone knows exists? What do we need? And if you talk to different groups, everybody has a different idea.
Right.
But everybody needs food, clothing, and shelter.
Yeah.
What you over there laughing for, Rich?
Everybody needs education. So what is whether you want a 2-bedroom house, 1-bedroom, but it's still housing. You still need good food. You still need an equitable education.
Right.
You need health care. So I don't know what is so difficult for us to come together to say that those are basic things we need, but because of the inequities and disparities and the oppression that we have been living under for the past 400 years, we need a bigger chunk of that in order to bring it back. Because COVID was after everybody. It didn't, race, color, economic stature.
Right.
It affected everybody the same. But because of our inequities, we need a bigger chunk to be able to deal with. Let me back up a second, if I may.
Go ahead.
Not only do we have the pandemic of COVID, remember, in 2015, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention came into the Wilmington and did an investigation and deemed us to be in an epidemic state of mental illness due to trauma that is resulting in gun violence amongst our young people. So we haven't even finished dealing with that part, with the epidemic. So we got the epidemic, then we got the pandemic, then we got George Floyd.
Yeah.
And that was a trigger. That was
Yeah.
a trigger. And so our reaction and action was what's called as a traumatic episode. And that's what resulted in all of that. So we not only got to deal from the COVID, but we also got to deal with the epidemic of trauma.
Now, Rich, you're in the community every day, and you're with these kids. What type of things do you see being frontline?
Again, a knowledge of self. It starts with a knowledge of self and who you are. And unfortunately, a lot of our children don't know who they are. And I will say this, I don't believe that the educational system is designed to teach them who they are. I believe that we have a responsibility to step up to the plate and educate them so they know who they are and where they're going.
Okay.
So I think that's the crux of the matter. We have to start at that fundamental issue to know that you're great. We're the ones who created language. We built pyramids. We're the first ones to use speech, color. I mean, art, mathematics, science, philosophy, astrology, all of those are attributed to our ancestors, and these are things that they're not aware of. So I think it first starts with a sense of pride, and giving them a sense of responsibility and belonging. I think that's number one.
Hanifa, I heard you say CDC. Can you tell me more? And if I'm not mistaken, you're responsible for having the CDC in Wilmington, right?
Well, yes. I passed a resolution and sent it down to the General Assembly and requested that they request that the Center for Disease Control come in to investigate what I felt, and I'm quite sure many, and evidently they agreed, that the actions of our young people committing the heinous crime of being able to shoot somebody, that's just not, definitely knew that was not the nature of our children, and that there had to be something immensely wrong with our children that they could do that. And I didn't do any more assessment, I didn't do any more testing or research. I sent all of the many task force and the Hope Commission and the Morton Commission and all the different reports that we've done on our situation. I sent all that data to the Center for Disease Control. At that time, Governor Markell supported me, along with Rita Landgraf and the entire congressional delegation supported that effort. And the Center for Disease Control came in and did an 18-month investigation of victims and individuals who committed gun violence. And they researched what the commonalities was, and they came back with several findings. And the result of them the first one was that we had to find a safe place for our children to be able to go to, and for us to form a community-based advisory organization to implement the recommendations and findings of their report. They didn't tell us how to do it. Right. They just said this is what the findings was. And so the Wilmington Community Advisory Council is that entity that's been together for the past 3 years, comprised of over 46 nonprofit organizations, state agencies, and community individuals to come up with a new way of providing support services to help our children.
So with that in hand, are we doing enough right now?
Absolutely
and if not, how do we do more?
Well, it takes all of us. I mean, it's such a big lift. Because not only we can't leave it up to government to do it, we can't leave it up to the educational system to do it. Because remember, this trauma is not just in the children. This trauma is 3 generations, if not more generations. I mean, we have not healed from the trauma of slavery, and that's still in our DNA. So we're talking about all of us having to understand that we all have, in the Black community, we don't deal with mental illness. We just don't accept that we have mental problems, and that the brain can misfunction just like any of our other organs can misfunction.
Now, Rich, let me ask you this: with the kids, do you see this trauma that Hanifa's talking about?
Absolutely.
On what level do you see it?
Well, I see it a lot, especially when you're talking about gun violence. Sometimes, shooting another individual is a cause to be seen. I want to be seen, so I'm going to do this. And that you have to deal with that kind of trauma. And sometimes it could be troubling and frightening. I would also add that a lot of our scholars now are talking about spiritual. There's spiritual defilement, and so restoring the individual is looking also at the spiritual aspect, because we're spiritual people. And so mental health and spiritual health, they go hand in hand. And so we also got to look at the spiritual health of our people, and we recognize that over time we haven't been educated in terms of who we are spiritually either. That we've taken on spiritual systems that are really anti to who we are. So there's a lot of work to be done. I think streamlining our organizations. I believe that we work in silos a lot, and oftentimes that's because of ego. So we have to learn to set aside our ego and collectively work to solve the problems. I see the breakdowns all the time. I see the great things from the CDC report and what they were trying to put together, but I also see the breakdown in terms of the organizations. The state is working over here, the city is working over here. It's like we can never really get the services and the resources to our children because, if there's a program over here where I can send a child after they've matriculated through our program, where do we send them? And there's a breakdown in terms of communication, and I'm like, oh, you have that going over there? Well, we could have plugged our children from our program once they finished. We could have plugged them over there, and they could have continued to get different services. So there's a breakdown, and I think we have to do a better job. I always talk about, what we can do to solve the issues and the problems as opposed to putting the onus on someone else. I think that we're brilliant minds. I mean, we're from the children of the Most High, so it's nothing that we can't do. So I think it's we sit down collectively, I think that we can transform the city, and we have to invest in people. We have to really invest in people in a way that we haven't.
Let me ask you this, Rich, while I got you. I want to hear a little bit more, and I want you to tell the people about the Cultural Restoration Project. And with that trauma that you see that's in these children that you deal with, what does that program do to help these children?
So Cultural Restoration Project, Inc. is a nonprofit organization, and we do youth programming. We have several programs. The one that's the most popular is called Beyond Those Bars. That's a hip-hop-based supplemental education program. We focus on reading, writing, STEM, communication, confidence building, and whatnot. They create these great musical pieces where they have to research and agree on topics, and they build music around this. There's another program called KOS. KOS is knowledge of self. Simple, and we use Afrocentric modalities such as Ma'at, Ubuntu, Iwa Pele, and we use these modalities, these spiritual modalities, to get them to build their character, to show them a sense of responsibility, a sense of belonging. It deals socially, economically, spiritually. We take a look at the holistic part of an individual, not just one. So, I love doing this work. It's beautiful. I love working with our people, and we've had a lot of great success. We've had 3 of the students that we work with who are now in college,
Nice.
And one that lives in Riverside Project. So he's really excited and happy about that, and they receive full rides,
Nice.
And I've watched them grow, and I've watched them have a sense of purpose, and us collectively working with them. I'm just looking like, wow, look at what we can do. That's why I say we're limitless. We have power. We just have to tap it. We have to tap into that power, I believe. We have to.
Yeah.
And it's going to take us to do it because we have the cultural intelligence, and we have the the lens by which to talk and to reach out to each other. Because a lot of times others outside our community, not saying that others can't come in and we don't need their support because we need so much, but it really has to stem from a grassroots base level, because we do have the patience, we have the understanding of the actions and reactions of our people, the conditions, and the things that our community does, and then once we you get that relationship and understanding and can talk to them in our own dialect, because we have our own way we talk, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's necessary to be able to bridge that gap of communication. And then once we bridge that gap of communication and feed those facts and that information, do we expand our broad base of how we do what we need to do into bring ourselves to the standard of full self-sufficiency and self-resilience.
Nice.
And I'll add on this. When I'm looking at young kings, right? I always, when we're in the classroom, because I work mostly with our boys, and our greeting is peace, king. Peace, King. That's how we greet each other. And I have to realize that when I'm in that classroom, I may be talking to that child's grandson's 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 grandson, and I work from that perspective because I realize that, you know, we live in a microwave era, so we expect everything. We expect us to do these great things and leave this great legacy, but I'm like, you know, we have to fight now for 7 generations later. And can you live with that you may not receive the glory? That's something that we have to ask ourselves, because too many people want this instant gratification and this instant glory, but I'm saying we have to look at what we're going to look at 7 generations later. And if we can work now to build 7 generations later, we'll have the success. So when I return 7 generations later, if you catch my drift, I'll be happy at what I see. Right.
Somebody need to do the mathematics on that. Real quick, and not real quick, I want to ask you both this. When you, and we're going to fast forward to what's happening right now. For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, when you saw that video, what was going through your mind?
I still haven't watched the video. I have to be perfectly honest. I could not watch the video.
Why didn't you?
Because you have to understand your triggers.
Right.
And once you understand your triggers, you can make better decisions. I mean, I don't want to be in a melee downtown doing something. We'll leave that at that. But I understood that that was a trigger for me, so I just couldn't watch it. I cannot watch how people continue to be brutalized. I had enough of it, and I know, I know what happened, so I could not watch it.
Right.
So what goes through my mind in terms of that, it's unfortunate, and I just couldn't watch it, and I refused to watch it.
How about you, Hanifa?
Well, when he called for his mother, I'm a mother. And I have grandsons, and I got great-grandchildren. I called upon all of the mother's energy to give him breath. It's why I do what I do. Is why I am in this business of public service to this day, because I've known of what's happening here in America, what my people have faced, and the oppressions and the continued destruction of our great people. Well, I didn't mean to get emotional, but every time
it's okay. It's okay.
It takes me there. So, another question. I can't go.
All right. Yesterday they put together the Black Caucus task force, and we saw some amazing people, the people that we know, stepping up and ready to take on a lot of issues. Yesterday we saw Frank Cook, State Representative Frank Cook, who's going to be leading the task force on accountability. Did any of you guys see that yesterday?
I was there.
How was that, Hanifa?
That was amazing. It was a symbolic show of unity and an admission of historical facts. I'm very anxious now to see what's happening next, though.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say though, because I'm trying to keep it positive. I'm very anxious. I do have great faith in those legislators there, knowing their character and their passion for their work, that they will lead us to make major changes in a systemic, institutionalized policies that have demonstrated widely in Delaware racism in many facets: education, housing, criminal justice, health, and so. But we can't leave it just on their shoulders. That's too much work for just that little bit of people to do.
Right.
Even though the state does control most of those, they are the legislative body that controls most of that. But we need, even as a city legislative body of the city government, we need our residents, our constituents to talk to us so that we can send resolutions to the General Assembly,
right,
recommending what we know we need to hear for Wilmington, Wilmington specific. So it's a heavy lift, and I'm up for the challenge of continuing to do the work.
It was amazing for me to see. We're in a very, very special time right now.
Very.
Okay, and it is amazing to see, for me to see, and I wish my dad was alive to see it, because my father from Newport News, Virginia, dealt with racism all his life. In the business world, even at 12 years old, coming outside and watching a cross being burnt on the front lawn, and how Virginia was so, it still is, segregated. It is a time now that when I've been speaking to older people, seasoned people, that are saying they never seen a influx of white, black people together,
right,
to say this is wrong. You know, let's move forward. You see statues being torn down in communities. You see streets being named Black Lives Matter. You see change. My question to you is, how do we not just make this a fad for the next 60 to 90 days, but to make some concrete changes in our community with the allies that we have, that's saying, hey, I'm going to use my privilege, you use your privilege. How do we make this not just a movement, but a fixture on our society?
Well, it's a lot of the, to bring about a change of culture is the change of policy. Some things are happening, like our criminal justice system, the unequitable sentencing, those laws that allow that to happen, the laws that allow our children to have an equitable education. Will that cry and that camaraderie from everyone still remain when it comes time for us to make policy changes that might take a little bit from somebody else to fill in the inequities of others? Will there be support of that? Because if there's only so much if there's only so much in the pot, and in order for it to be equal or bring some equity, you might have to take from somebody to give it to another. How well are they going to receive that? That's the real test.
Right. Rich?
I would say, in the words of the great H. Rap Brown, we're not outnumbered, we're out-organized. And our lack of unity with one another is going to let this fail. So we really have to unify. You have to realize that they diced us up into Christians and Muslims and Jews and whatever, and we have to see the commonality. That's the great thing with Marcus Mosiah Garvey, is he was able to see through that. You can be a Christian if you want. You can be a Muslim if you want. But stand for black people. That is the main thing. And so I think that people are outraged. I always say this. White people are not living a quality life. The systemic issues, they can't live a quality life when a black man walks in to the restaurant and you are having all of this glory and fun, and a black man walks in, Ivan walks in, and now you get clutching your purse and you get nervous, and now it's time to go. It's disrupted your peace. So as a human being, you're not living a quality life, and that's what a lot of white people don't realize, is you're not living a quality life. You know, the way that you're treating human beings. This is a human issue, and that's what the great Malcolm was saying, that this is not about civil rights, this is about human rights. And so when we deal with each other on a human level, things have to change and elevate. So I think that we can actually move this forward, but it's going to take us working collectively. Clergy has to reach down in the muck and the mire and work with the brothers that are on the streets.
Right.
The brothers on the streets are going to have to reach up to the political wing, and we're going to have to work together as a collective unit. Right. That's how they continue. That's why we cannot get as far as we get, because they always find a way to disrupt us. We know that the CIA, the FBI has always infiltrated any movement that has come up, and you can see that now across the country, that people come in and infiltrate our movements. They infiltrate and they cause division and dissension between us. So if you're fighting for the liberation of our people, I'm going to work with you, regardless if I totally agree with everything. But I'm going to work with you because I believe that's the only way forward. You know, we have to work as a unit, collective. This is the African way. We as an African people have a duty and a responsibility to look at this from a Pan-African perspective, that wherever you are on the globe, that we are one people. And it's great that to have people from the African countries and presidents from African countries saying, we decry the way that you're treating black people in the United States of America. And when other countries are coming to our aid and benefit, that's a great thing. So, I think that there are white people now who realize this is not a quality of life. And I'm not living a quality of life. And they have a conscience as well. There's white people with a conscience, and they're stepping up and saying, nah, this can't happen. This is inhumane. And we claim to be a humane society. We claim to have morals. What moral ground does America have to go anywhere in the United States, to go anywhere globally to tell somebody we're going to bring democracy there? We don't have democracy here. We don't have peace here. We don't have the quality of life that we need here. So I think it's time for us to make demands and to stand up and to show America what humanity is truly about. Not just to talk about it, but we need to show that we're humane people, and we come to the table and show you what humanity is all about. It's our time.
Nice.
It's black people.
And it can't be they. They need to do this and they need to do that. I hear that a lot in civic groups. They need to do something for our children. They need to do this for housing. And I'm still looking for who Mr. They is. I'm looking for who that is. And so we have amongst us, all that is necessary because we're still surviving, regardless of what. We make it through. We figure it out some kind of way. And so we're going to figure this out too. And so it's going to take mostly us bringing back and build. That's why I keep talking about self-sufficiency and self-reliance. Because we have had so many programs and organizations coming into our community and do a survey, and then get our data, and they go back and apply for a grant, and they come and do a program for a period of time, and they get jobs, and they do what they do. And sometimes it works and it's beneficial, but then once that program leaves, the situation is still there, and we're without. We have not can't continue whatever that program, services, and initiative was. So I'm looking and pleading to our community. We have got to come together. We have got to make a plan. We got to roll our sleeves up, and we can do this. I mean, look at what we were able to do while we were enslaved. The many inventions and things that we were able to make come about to survive at that time.
Right.
You mean we can't do it now, and we're much more educated and have much more access to resources now that we can't work our way out of this? I beg to differ.
Absolutely, I love it.
There you go.
That's powerful words right there.
Yeah.
That's powerful words.
Yeah.
We created this, when our families were broken up, right? And we know the history of our people in our enslavement. Our families were broken up. We created what's called the extended family community, with aunts and uncles and babas and mamas. And, if you don't have a grandmother, you have a grandmother. It's a grandmother in your community. I tell people, look at the great things in our community. I mean, when you're looking at Jay-Z and Beyonce, look to those couples in your community that have been together for 50 years. Try to figure out how they stayed together. What kind of love is that? So if you look, we have gems and jewels in our community, and I think just organizing ourselves, if we organize ourselves and start working, we can do anything, because when you have that collective mind moving together, you have that God mind moving together.
Rich, let me ask you this, Rich. What message would you give to the lawmakers and people in Dover from what you see in the community, the needs that the community, what they need? What message would you give to them?
Well, I don't want to be one voice telling them, what's going on. I think, it's going to take us coming together, to have that conversation, because there's some things going on the west side, there's some things going on the east side. There's a lot of working components to this. So, I would say, let's sit down and have a conversation. Let's invite our legislators and the Black Caucus into our communities, and let's have a real live conversation, no cameras or whatever, and let's talk about the issues. Maybe there's some things that you don't understand, and I'm sure there's things that we don't understand, because I'm sure y'all are dealing with degrees of racism, and so we have to understand that racism hits at every level, no matter if you move outside the community to an affluent neighborhood. So I think it's us coming together and working together from that perspective. So I don't want to be one voice giving an answer. I think that's a conversation that we should have. Yeah,
we got to add not only this racism, we got to add classism in them. And also, because we have classism is another ism
Yes.
Sexism. We have a whole bunch of isms that we are really ill with. And so we're going to have to deal with all of that. But if you look at people just as a human being, regardless of what level of education, what kind of income they might have, or where they might live, just that it's like you said, humanity. They are just a fellow brother, fellow sister. And that's something that, if y'all notice when I speak to you, your name is Brother Ivan.
Right.
I always call you brother, and I call you sir.
Right.
And I get people say, why you call me sir? Because if I, as a black woman, don't respect my black men in America, who will?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's just what I've been taught, and that's what I practice. And there's other people who pick up that also, and so that children see it as well. So if we don't start respecting each other, how do we expect anybody else to respect us? So
and set the standard. I think that's perfect what you said. We have to set the standard. And make that normal. Make it normal when our women walk down the street. How you doing, Queen? You look beautiful today. Without any, I want to get what you are. We see ourselves as brothers and sisters, and we have to raise our children in a different way. We have to raise them with the mindset that that's your brother and your sister, not someone you exploit for sexuality or whatever. So These are the kinds of things that we have to work through. And I think, for me, I've been in struggle for over 20 years, and I've been part of organizations. I've been a part of organizations, so I know how to take orders. I know how to lead as well, and we have to work on that front. You have to learn. If you work in committees, you understand me working with the Nawabian Nation, we've worked in committees similar to what's going on in our government. So I've worked on committees where I had to take orders from certain individuals, and I've worked on committees where they had to take orders from me. So you learn that organizational strategy. That's a great thing. So, get involved in organization. Get involved in structured organization, and that's going to teach you a great deal. Because I laughed earlier because I see a lot of people putting things out, a lot of efforts. They want to spearhead a lot of efforts, and I say the first thing is research. Mm-hmm. The first thing we have to do is research, so that we don't put something out there and then have to come back and say, well, we went too soon. Let's work collective, and you may have the great idea, but you may need somebody who can come and add some strategy and some structure to it. That's what I say, working together, because I'm good at certain things, and there's certain things I'm not good at. So when we work collectively, there's nothing that we can't do. We can restore and heal our communities. Yeah. We can create an oasis in our communities. We can create a vanguard. We can create a black business district. We've done these things before in Oklahoma. We've done these things all throughout the country. We can do them. Right? We just have to make, we learn from the mistakes or the mishaps of the past, and so that we improve upon them things and make them stronger, so that when the next generation inherit them, they're airtight.
To build a foundation, you have to have a ruler. And we all have to have that same rule. We lost our rulers. Some of us are using an 11 3/4 inch ruler. Some are using a 12-inch ruler. Some are using a 12.5-inch ruler. And then trying to build a square, and wonder why it's not a stable foundation. And mathematics is the only true science that if you don't have a mathematical formula or a plan of action, your outcome can't be that of success. We lost those kinds of standards and practices and moralities and things that we just came from our culture, and we have to teach them to our children. If I could just digress one little thing, let me say as simple as this. When we were in school, there were crossing guards.
Right.
Right? So the crossing guards taught you how to cross the street, how to read the lights, know which light to go, and where to cross the streets. They don't have them anymore. What do? Major jaywalking. So then just that little simplistic educational training would teach our children how to cross the streets properly, where to cross the streets properly, and avoid, I don't know how many, I hope there's not been many accidents, but just those types of educational things that we used to have, we don't have anymore. Cleaning your steps on Saturday. You have to, every Saturday, you have to
oh man, don't start that. Don't start that.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. What made me bring that up.
Yeah, Sissy made that post. I feel like I needed, when I woke up to Rich, I feel like when I woke up to Hanifa now, I need to say, what's today's mathematics?
Yeah. And let me add the last part in there is culture. culture.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, you know, they were heavy in saying culture is our roadmap. It teaches you where to go. It teaches you what to do. It teaches you to measure the world. You know, and so we have to center ourselves. We have to centralize our condition and work from that perspective and stop looking through the lens of other people. We have to look through our historical lens so that we can build the kind of world that we want.
Nice. And in closing, I want to ask you something, both of you something real quick. I want you to not ask. I want you to look at the camera, and I want you to give the community, you know, a message from your heart. So I'm gonna start with Richard, and then we're gonna finish up with Hanifa. Cool?
Cool.
All right. It's on you, Rich.
Marcus Mosiah Garvey says to us, "Up ye mighty people." And one of the things that Garvey taught, I know a lot of people see me say this is Garvey City, because Garvey City, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, he incorporated the Black Star Line here, and that was a black shipping company. Garvey seen that we needed so much, that we needed a lot socially, psychologically, and spiritually, and he was able to address all of those things. His comprehensive plan was able to address those things. So up ye mighty people, realizing that we are mighty people, is nothing that we can't do. We are the sons and daughters of the Son. You know, we are a complete representation of the Most High, and we have a duty and a responsibility to live up to that standard. So I say, community, you're great, you have purpose. People may not have told you that, but you have purpose and you have value. And at this time, let's step up into our roles as the caretakers of this planet.
Awesome. Sister Hanifa?
Well, there's a saying that I always share, and that is, the nation can rise no higher than its woman. And as a woman, I understand what my role and responsibility is. And as we women continue to be that great earth, that when life is planted into us, we bring forth food to feed the earth, whether it's mind, body, and soul food. We are able to provide what's necessary in bringing forth the children, and also being that support mate to the man. So nation can rise no higher than its woman. This men continue to stand up and be the great gods and symbols of God that we know that you are, and we will continue to rise as a great nation.
Ashe.
Amazing.
Ashe.
Thank you both for attending tonight's America's Turning Point here on DETV, a segment off of Good Morning Wilmington. Tomorrow morning on Good Morning Wilmington, I have a special guest for you, so make sure you check that out. We're going to try to get on around about 10 o'clock. There's so much happening in Wilmington and so much happening in Delaware. I'm a kid born and raised over South Bridge, and actually, Sister Hanifa lived 2 blocks down, no, 1 block down from us. So it is definitely a privilege to sit here and interviewing her on our show. Wilmington, we've been through so much, but we can get through this together. Let's find out how we organize. Let's find out how we educate. But most of all, let's find out how we listen. We have to listen to everyone to see what everyone has been through in order to know where we're going. So in that effort and in my goodbyes for this evening, I would like to say thank you on behalf of the DETV family in the wonderful state of Delaware, but this amazing city of Wilmington. Hashtag Wilmington Strong. We will rebuild, we will be better, and we will be one. It is your main man, Big Eye, to Talking to Town, Mr. DETVCH.com. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and all that good stuff in the website. But before that, hey, Rich, can you give them your website to the Cultural Restoration Project?
So it's www.crpde.org. That's crpde.org.
And we'll make sure that we put that in the comments below so you can play it. So you can, because when you do donate, it definitely goes to a good cause. It's your main man, Big Eye, to Talking to Town. Good morning, Wilmington. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode, and I'll see you on the other side. Bam.